You are listening to the Nosy Drag Inn. I'm your dungeon master / innkeeper, Jessa. I am joined by my players / patrons and special guest, Ben.
Why, hello.
And AHero.
How's it going?
In today's session, we talk all about dungeon master tips. This episode was made possible in part by Solid State. More about Solid State later in the episode. Welcome to the tavern.
It's good to stretch my limbs. Oh, since when did you get a new patron?
I don't know. He just kind of popped up out of nowhere.
Oh,
I'm just stopping by.
huh. That's, you're the first person to stop by besides the usual group in...
Yeah, I haven't
I
seen
think
Josh
ever.
since he died, actually.
Right. He was killed. A lot of stuff happened in the tavern.
I tried to resurrect him, but I think he's not free or willing.
Yikes.
Mm.
Oof. Don't let that turn you off, Hero.
Yeah, no, don't worry. Most people that are killed in the tavern are resurrected within 2 to 3 business days.
Well, what's causing you to die in this tavern?
Well, I think someone was poisoned that one time.
Mm-hmm.
Josh was killed by an assassin. It was a mix-up. The assassin he put like the wrong wording in the phrasing, so the assassin thought he was supposed to kill himself instead of the target.
I
mistake.
badmouthed Paylor in front of an acolyte.
Yeah.
It was a bad time.
Paladin. Yeah.
Oh, how many times have you died?
Me? I don't think I've died actually. I'm pretty old, so you think that maybe it would have happened to me by now. It's a gold dragon of my age. You'd think would have come up by now, but I've been pretty conflict avoidant, so I've gotten away with it. If you want tips on how to stay alive longer, I can help you guys. On that note, let's get into today's episode. Tips for dungeon masters. Before we get into the tips, though, we are joined by our special guest, AHero from the series Why Your Monsters Suck. Welcome, Hero.
What's up? I'm glad to be here. This is going to be a great time.
We're hoping. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. I really loved your first video. I thought the firepower idea was awesome. If you guys want to know what I'm talking about, just type in Why Your Monsters Suck. You'll find it.
Watch his stuff. All of it. All of it's great.
Yeah. But that first idea, because it's true, like really epic encounters often are truncated by stuff that's hard to foresee as a dungeon master.
If only clairvoyance, the spell, worked in real life, that would be great.
Well, I am going to use this segue to kind of lead right into our first topic, and I'm going to redirect us to our first point, which is redirecting players' requests instead of saying no to something crazy. So I'll give an example. Often players get violent very quickly because they're the heroes in the game. They want to do something cool, and it's not cool to be dissed or to be looked down on or something and just take it. So often a lawful good character will do something quite chaotic evil because his honor was offended or something. So an example is like, oh well, I tell the king to go fuck himself because he's not respecting or whatever. And it's like, great. Well, I don't want to tell him no, not to do that. Or like, well, I mean, would you really do that? You're surrounded by like 110 royal guards in the central part of his, palace.
Yeah, no, I'd really do it. Like, I don't care.
He's got his wizard and his whatever next to him. And for a fact that the king himself has done a lot of it. You sure, like, would your character, rather than doing that, as it can kind of kill the momentum, you can be like, got it. So what I understand what you want to do is you want the king to understand that like you're someone to be reckoned with. You know, you're like a force, you're powerful, and he's not to look down on you just because you didn't come from nobility or something. And they're like, yeah. And you're like, cool, give me a persuasion check. From like, I stab him to let's roll a firm talking to persuasion check. Let's translate that energy. I can't remember the name of the martial art, but there's some sort of martial art that's all about redirecting your enemy's energy.
Is it Hapkido?
I don't know.
Aikido, something like that.
Aikido.
Aikido, judo.
Yeah. That's the one. So it's not about saying no to your players, but it's by taking their excitement and their energy to engage in the game and redirecting it into something more productive, or more satisfying, because they might not know the things that you know. Right? Let's say they're like, oh, I spit in the barkeep's face, or I slam, I steal the key or something. And it's like, well, what you don't know is that the barkeep to this particular inn is a golden dragon.
Just for random example.
Which is something that actually happened in a campaign. There was a tavern, and I think the tavern was like in Dwarvish, and it said like the golden something, the golden paw, the golden claw, or something like that was the name of the tavern in Dwarvish. And I described the tavern keeper as having, liquid gold eyes, and the party didn't get it. And so there was a moment where it's like, are you sure you want to do that kind of a thing?
Yeah.
But that sucks. It kills the momentum. It's not a lot of fun. And there's certainly times to say no, absolutely. But it's definitely a skill, learning how to redirect the request. So basically what I've learned to do is it's how to redirect is think about how you would proposition the thing that they're asking to do, to ask them to make a check, right? Often players will say, I want to roll to hit, or I want to roll an acrobatics check, or can I roll persuasion, or let me do a perception check on whatever. And you can listen to their request and go, well, maybe that doesn't need a check. Like, you can just step on the cockroach. You don't have to roll to hit. Or, you can open the door. You don't need to do me a strength check. Or, you can ask the guard to let you in. You don't need to do an intimidation. Your reputation precedes you, and he's already unnerved just by your presence. So taking a ridiculous request and making it a little lighter. Ben, has that ever happened to you?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I feel like I've been on the DM side of this and the player side of this. I've definitely had situations where like my character's in a flustered moment, there's a lot of high emotion, and they want to do something that would endanger not only themselves but also the entire party, and would be generally a bad idea. I think there was one instance of this. We were playing a campaign that you were running, actually, and our big bad evil guy was with us. Like, he was there. He kind of had, he was structured in this way where he didn't outright seem like a villain. Like, his demeanor wasn't like evil bad guy, but he was very, very wealthy, and he like there was clearly some like dark underground stuff happening because of him. And I think there was an instance where my character just straight up wanted to reach out and attack him, without really realizing the situation we were in. He was constantly surrounded by bodyguards, and like highly trained armed bodyguards that could pretty much tear us up. And despite his like calm demeanor, he could tear us up. Like, I think in that instance, you might have redirected my intention towards something a little bit less directly violent.
That's interesting. I actually kind of wanted you guys to attack him for a long time.
Really?
I remember the first time when I instigated a player very hard to attack him. It was. What about you, Hero? Have you ever had a moment where you've uh, needed to reinterpret a player's request, otherwise it would go crazy.
There are 3 branches to why a player did something stupid. Number 1, they are bad faith players, and you should talk to them outside of the game. Let's pretend that's not the case, because that's a whole wormhole.
Oh yeah.
2 and 3 are redirecting. You guys have talked about that. And then the third option is recontextualizing the situation. Because oftentimes when a player does something stupid, in your perspective, it's often maybe because you and the players don't have like the same understanding of the scene that's happening. So oftentimes when they're like about to do something stupid, like you're about to jump over a chasm, do you realize what you're doing? Like there's a lot of risk to this, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna do this on my turn instead, and then usually that resolves it.
Yeah, I think when your dungeon master goes, okay, let me reiterate that thing. That's usually for a good player, they know that's a warning sign. Because otherwise I would just, okay, let's go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me, there was this room, and I described the room to the best of my ability of like, there's a crystal in the center of this room, and it's randomly shooting out this ray of death, this destructive laser beam. It's very chaotic, and as much as you examine it, there doesn't seem to be a pattern in when it shoots out. And it looks like there's a sphere in this room that's been carved out by the crystal. And then the player is like, I want to go in there. And I'm like, so let me re-describe. And then he's like, okay, I throw a box in there. And I'm like, all right, you throw the box in there. And I describe how eventually it gets hit by a beam and it is disintegrated into ash. And then he's like, cool, I want to use prestidigitation to make my shield more shiny, and then I'm going to use my shield to reflect it. Okay, so just to clarify, and we went over it one more time, and he was right about to go in, and it was just like he could see the fear on my face.
Buddy, you're using a cantrip to try and deflect a laser beam.
No.
Disintegrate is not. It's not a light spell. Even if it was like just I don't know, radiant damage is lessened by mirrors. No, unfortunate. Yeah, mirror shields give you advantage. I mean, give you resistance to radiant damage. You didn't know that?
You actually make a great point, Hero, with the fact of like recontextualizing, because I think it's often easy to forget when we're the dungeon master setting the scene. Everyone has a different vision of what's actually going on in their head. So, I mean, those kind of things are bound to happen, right?
And then there's number 4. There's number 4.
Oh, boy.
They know exactly what's happening. They're desperate, and they are making a gamble for their lives.
Oh, man.
That's true. That's true. I've done that too. I was playing a half-orc barbarian who had like an intelligence of 3 and very high health, but pretty low levels, probably like level 4 or something like that. And I had triggered 3 traps already in this dungeon we were going through, and all of them had done pretty decent amount of damage to me. And then I'm like, all right, I continue to walk down the path. He's like, the dungeon master's like, without rolling investigation or perception or any, you're just gonna keep going, for just gonna blunder forth no matter what. And I'm like, yeah, he's really dumb. Like, I am totally aware there's probably one more trap, and I also know that it could possibly kill me. But my character is dumb as rocks. And then he's like, oh, okay, well, the NPC that's with you tells you, wait, you need to be careful. There's traps here. You think you'd gotten that by now, that there's traps here. We have to be careful. And he's like, no more trap. Break all trap already. And I walked into the next trap and dropped to 1 HP.
Oh my God.
I mean, you didn't die.
I did die, but I was half work, so with relentless endurance, I came back to 1.
Oh, you just said no.
Yeah. Death? No, yeah. Sorry, that's not for me.
We don't do that here. So, and it was frustrating for the DM, and I apologize for that, but I was having a blast. I knew exactly what I was doing. I just did it anyway. Speaking of which, when is a good time to say no to a player's request or a course of action? Ben, you want to start us off?
Well, I think you have to be careful with this because you can't fly off the handle with saying no to players. Part of what makes D&D so engaging and fun is the players' freedom to do, for the most part, what they want. Of course, there are limitations. Of course, you can only do what your character could feasibly do, but within those parameters, you want to be able to have your players really feel like they can do what they want to do. And that's how you keep things fun and engaging. Now, I mean, right off the bat, if your player is doing something where, like, they're trying to, like, pull a particular rule for their benefit, like, let's say they're reading through the description of a spell, and it says, like, it's verbal semantic. You speak a word, and then, like, hold person or whatever. If they want to try and hold person on, like, a god that they are encountering, like, it could be that this town is, like, being visited by this holy vision, and there is a god that they are attempting to hold person on. Knowing the temperament of that god and knowing that it would just kind of end roleplay entirely, I think it's okay to take a break and be like, hey, look, I mean, I don't want to stop you from doing this, but I'm going to stop you from doing this.
Yeah, I think a really clear line is what you're doing going to be fun for the group?
Yeah.
Right? So if what you do makes everyone else at the table groan, but not in a comic relief way, you know, but like, oh my God, I hate this guy. Like I, Jason, hate you, Ben. Not, oh my gosh, your character is such a hoot. He's so unpredictable. Or he's so annoying. But it's like, no, me as a human being in real life, and frustrated with you as a human being and your choices. This is no longer about what your character would do. I think what your character would do is just stupid, like, and it's ruining for everyone, right? So let's say there is a lot of build up to a big conversation between two warring factions, and a player at the thing is getting bored, and he goes, "I cast Fireball on the delegate of elves because why not?" And it's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. It's like, well, I'm chaotic neutral. It's like, yeah, and no one would ever do that. It's certain death, and even if you don't die, like, there's no reason to do that. There's no benefit.
Yeah.
And I just won't allow you to do it. And even if you do want to do it, and you're like, well, I don't care about the consequences. Everyone else is having fun at this conversation, and you doing this is going to ruin it for everybody. And I'm just going to break the moment. I'm sorry, no, can't do that. It's not funny. It's not interesting. It's not clever. It's just bad. Have you ever had to say no, Hero?
Not recently, because in the case, so like with the person that's casting Fireball on the Elvish delegation, there's like clearly some sort of dissonance between what they value and like what the rest of the party and the table's valuing. So at that point, when you say no, okay, you're not doing that. Let's talk about like what's going on here, why you're feeling bored at this table, and what we can do about it, like out of character.
That's smart.
Yeah, definitely. I think that one way or another, if you stop them outright or if it happens in the moment, you want to have a conversation, like that's at the time to really assess like what's going on with a player. If it's because for the most part, fingers crossed, knock on wood, players are like trying to come together as a party and have fun. Yeah, exactly.
Wow, Hero, you brought a level of empathy to that I don't know why. But like, I'm just, whenever I had to say no in these kind of situations, I'm always just like so frustrated. Like, really? That's what it never occurred to me to like, hold on. That's a warning sign that maybe this person isn't here. Let's let's step aside. What's going on, buddy? How are you feeling today? How was work?
It's okay to throw on fireballs if everyone else at the table is throwing out fireballs at important political figures. That's totally fine, as long as everyone's on board with.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Oh man. I feel like these conversations often happen like during session 0 or setting up, like when people bring player ideas to you. Like sometimes as a DM, someone brings a player idea and you just got to say no because either it's like completely against the theming of the campaign, it doesn't fit with the party, or uh not to call you out, Jason. There was
no. I was going to call myself out.
So I started a campaign a little while ago, and the first idea that Jason brought to me was he wanted to play a rogue, and specifically he wanted to be secretly stealing things from the players without them knowing. And he brought this up while everyone was there on call, and immediately everyone was like, I don't want to play with that. Like, no, wait, why would you do that? What the hell?
I've been trying to play that rogue forever. The rogue who's just the kleptomaniac who just steals everything all the time, whenever, however, for no particular reason. Just the absolute kleptomaniac. And every time we bring it up at session 0, almost, not always, but almost unanimously, people are like, no, not interested.
No offense to you, I would not want to be in that party.
I know. One day I will find a group that's like, you know what, that could be interesting. I don't know what they're going to look like, or if that group is even going to be fun to play with. But yeah, I wanted to play this absolute psychopath, sociopath, serial killer, stealing rogue who had some weird reason to be with the party and protect them, but not because he cared about them, but some ulterior motive that would probably never bear fruit. And so he was just always going to be with the group, but always breaking off when we're doing long rests and stuff to do these weird, wacky side things. And I've been wanting to play that character for a long time. And when Ben said no, I was like, all right, I'll be a lawful good paladin, I guess.
He went the complete opposite. Oh,
yeah.
man.
I know no one will have problems with that. Well, speaking of banning things, I most of my tables, I've found that the thing. Well, let me say this: when most of the tables I played at and DM'd at, I found the thing that ends those campaigns prematurely, almost always, is player disputes because of something that they felt was unfair, or they didn't like, or rubbed them the wrong way. And so things that I ban at every table, almost always, is PvP in all forms. And so player versus player, but I don't just mean combat. So no charisma checks on other players, no stealing from other players, which we just talked about, no insulting each other. Like, it's okay if you guys have like a backstory thing, blah, 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 and both, whatever, we'll get to that. But, all like player disputes, like let's say I'm angry at Ben in real life because he forgot the rice pudding and it's the 3rd week in a row. And then I'm mad at him and want to like, okay, well, I push your character, into the orc strong guy at the bar so that he tries to fight you. All those, if you're mad, all that kind of stuff, that needs to happen in real life. Yeah. All disputes to be handled out of game, not in game. None of that stuff. If I'm mad at a player for whatever reason, if they're doing something, if they're late, or if they're being annoying or whatever, I am not going to have God reach out from the sky and in game and kill their character.
Yeah.
So unless both players in every moment, so I ban it all, but if both players in that very moment explicitly both give their genuine, authentic consent that they're okay with what's about to happen and accept all consequences, then I will allow in that singular moment for them to do rolls against each other. So let's say one player goes, I want to roll to hit so-and-so. Then I will, I'll allow it to happen if both players explicitly agree that that's okay.
Yeah.
Or if it's all story driven, it's all authentic role play that's happening, that's really good, really juicy, really beautiful. and I don't want my dumb rule to get in the way of what would naturally occur between these two happy players who are obviously having a good time and role playing, then of course it's fun. But I consider that, consent. If they're both engaging in role play, and then one goes, "Oh, I punch him in the face." I say that last part of like, unless it's role play, because there was that one time, Ben, where we were doing this campaign where there was two players at the table were having a really intimate moment. My character and another Josh, who's normally here. Our characters were talking to each other, and my character, I was a bit of like a Mandalorian. I'd never taken my helmet off in front of anyone. And in that moment, I took off my helmet to show this ally. And the party, quote, let's call him rogue, air quotes, not really a rogue, but the party rogue
party prankster
snuck around and watched this thing and then said something in game like, "Oh, cool face," or something like that. And it was such a big betrayal moment kind of a thing for him, because we had made it very clear, like, "Hey, we're going to have a private conversation. Please don't interrupt," in game, our characters. And it was a big deal, and it meant that he had broken his oath and all that and stuff. And so, yeah, he wanted to attack out of anger this trickster, right? And even though at that table PvP was banned, we still allowed it.
Yeah.
So
I distinctly remember that instance being, because it was just so like genuinely charged, and it really made sense in that moment for his character to try to attack. I don't think he even hit. I missed. Yeah, I think he missed and ended up, he shot like an eldritch blast and it ended up going skyward instead, and like said he roared out in rage and betrayal. But even just to let that happen, normally I would never encourage or have like player v player PvP happen unless it was completely consented. But that moment, it just seemed right.
Hero, how do you handle PvP?
Honestly, the last times I've had PvP were not the greatest, though. The one time it did go decently well, like both players were in it, like it was for very clear narrative purposes. Like I kind of fudged a lot of the rules to like make it work, because D&D is not designed for one-on-one combat at all. Like you hit a hold person and it's kind of over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. Every time I've had an important NPC held person by a group, it's like, well, that's it. That's the end of that character. So long. Yeah, you're right. It's really difficult.
Speaking of fudging, I think a lot of people have very conflicting views on fudging roles. I've heard, from forums I've read and from other people that I've met, there are either those like in favor of fudging roles when it's necessary, or just like, if the players can't do it, I can't do it, and it's interesting that you mentioned it too, because you can fudge rules as well, in order to possibly set up a better situation for a particular narrative. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Hero, do you
fudging? I have fudged. I used to be a very religious fudger, but nowadays I haven't had to fudge in a long time, because I'm not saying fudging is always a crutch, but it can be. It can be if you don't design the parameters of your situations correctly. Like, have you seen like Ring of Three Wishes or like wish scrolls being tossed around in like low-level games? Like, I feel like those GMs are asking for crazy things to happen, and then like when it does blow up in their face, they're like, "How did this happen? I put a wish scroll so."
Yeah, I've definitely never given my players a blade of luck. Not knowing what it was. Yeah. I've definitely learned how to when to fudge. I don't fudge for narrative purposes for as a dungeon master. I learned that because I did that once. I had this big encounter that I planned, and I made kind of special rules for it. And there was supposed to be this big epic moment, had music for it and stuff. And I prepared this map, and there's supposed to be this test of strength. And I did not calculate the aura of the paladin buffing our barbarian to have a +5 to his strength saving throws, and I was like, oof, that totally throws off the balance of this encounter, and it's no longer going to be a coin flip of who wins. It's like the barbarian is greatly advantaged in this scenario to be able to win. And I was like, oh man. And so yeah, within the first round, the dice spoke, and they said that this encounter was over, that the barbarian won in the first round, and I intended it to go for at least 10 rounds.
Yeah.
And I decided to fudge and pretend that it wasn't over, and that the enemy had succeeded their strength check, and we continued for like 8 or 9 more rounds, and then I eventually let them win. And I realized the next day when we did the recap, well, the next time we met and they did the recap, nobody mentioned that piece of that set piece, that encounter. It didn't come up. And I was like, what about the thing? And they're like, oh yeah, that also happened. That was fine, I guess. Yeah. And I realized, had I let them win in the first round, they would never have stopped talking about it. It would have been the funniest thing. There was so much build up to it. There was like probably 9 sessions of climbing this mountain to get to this guy and to do this challenge, and for the fate of the valley and all that. And had they just kicked his ass and won in the first round, they would have laughed their asses off and thought it was the funniest thing ever, and felt OP and whatever. And it'd be a resounding memory that they still have today. And I took that from them for narrative, story beat, tension setting and all that. And D&D isn't that kind of. If I wanted that kind of a story, I should write a book. So for me, I fudge in the sense where I don't call for rolls if I don't want to have to fudge. Right? If they're talking to the king and I don't want there to be a chance for them to get a nat 1 and ruin the debate, I just never have them roll dice. If I want them to climb down the well and not fall and take fall damage, I just don't ask for an athletics or acrobatics check. I don't need to fudge. I don't need to go, oh, you rolled a 6 on your athletics check to scale the wall. Yeah, that's good enough. And it's like, why are we rolling?
Yeah, and the opposite.
It's a DC 5 or 6. Why are we rolling?
I think the opposite could be true too. Like if your players are trying to do something like punch a mountain in half, if you don't want to risk the chance of them rolling a nat 20 and then having to be like, yeah, you punched the mountain in half when that's clearly something that they're not able to do in that moment. So yeah, just don't have them roll for it.
Yeah, go ahead, punch the mountain. Should I roll the hit? No, just do it.
you take 1 damage.
Do a nice hearty thud into the dirt at the side of the mountain, leaving a little fist print. Good job. And it's not about taking away players' agency or
no,
putting in an easy mode. It's just, if you would have had to fudged the thing, you didn't plan it right, I think. So in general, I think don't fudge. But when you do fudge, it should be in favor of the player's fun, not your beloved story as a DM.
I think that's definitely the place to find it, because often I find myself, when I do fudge, it's for when I'm starting newer campaigns and like players who are level 1 and just starting out. If they're doing an encounter and the enemy gets a crit on them, and like in the context of the situation, there's still many more enemies, and like they're pretty much guaranteed gonna lose, then I'll fudge that roll so that they, they're still engaging in that fight. They're still able to have fun with it and get out of it, even if it's like by the skin of their teeth, because they're just starting out. Like no one wants to be cut off on their journey, like on the first few steps.
Yeah. I fudged HP of a monster once to make something more thematic, and kind of punctuate something and make a player feel cool. This happened just a few days ago, actually. There was a young player. I don't know how old he was, but I was a guest DM at a friend's house, and his son, I think, it doesn't matter. A young kid was playing D&D with the big guys, and he uses Pillar of Flame, Pillar of Fire, or something like that. And somehow all the zombies with their +0 to dexterity saving throws succeed a DC 17 saving throw.
Oh my God.
All of them, except for one. Like out of the 5 or 6 of them, one of them got a nat 1, and I was just like, "That's rough. Poor kid. He's been waiting 45 minutes for his turn, and then they all succeed. Like, that's ridiculous." So, despite them succeeding, I decided to halve their health so that they still took full damage in a way. And then the large monster had 206 HP, and that damage would have left him at 178. And I was like, yeah, he's dead. So yeah, I described it as, all the monsters jump out of the way, but it's too late and they all get cut in half by this radiant holy fire. And, it's super effective because they're zombies. And it's like they didn't have radiant vulnerability, but I fudged it and said they did. So it's a good job. And, he was so excited. So I feel like, yeah, why would I take that from him to stick to the rules and be like, yeah, the monster seems relatively unaffected. We got a good 45 HP to go. like, I don't know. And all the zombies only take half damage, and you effectively feel like you've contributed nothing. Good job.
Jeez.
So,
not that cruel.
I call that the cutscene. Like, all right, the dramatic tension is definitely lost here. You're probably going to win either way, so might as well just nuke the rest of their health.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. I felt like the combat had been going really well. A lot of people were having fun, getting good hits in. People got hurt. And it was kind of coming to a close naturally. Like, all the big guys were all at low health. And it was kind of like, why not? Like, we'll shorten the combat a little bit. He'll feel cool. Yeah, good punctuation. That reminds me of our next tip. What was it? Man, it's right on the tip of my tongue. It was...
Are you having trouble remembering?
Yeah, I can't remember. It perfectly segues into this next tip. What
was
it? Gosh.
Might I recommend then you take a look at our sponsor, Solid State. Do you have trouble remembering what's happening in your life? Do you find yourself questioning why this man, who you're not sure if you know or not, is trying to enact his revenge on you? Or what the name of your mother is, if you cast a spell or not last week, the last time you had a long rest, or if you lost your right hand last week or 2 weeks ago? Well, not anymore. At Solid State, your memories can be directly recorded into crystalline structures and stored in what they call a memory dimension. Using patented pocket plane technology, note-taking is a thing of the past, and looking directly into memories copied from your brain is in the now. Solid State's highly trained memory sculptors use a variety of practiced magics taught by the old ones. The entire process is discreet and secure, so that only the memories you choose to disclose stay safe with us. To start now, simply perform the ancient rite depicted on their website, solidstate.org/join, to speak with a representative. If you mention the code Nosy Drag, you'll get access to premium storage for the first 2 months when you sign up for a regular plan. Solid State. Your memories made solid.
Wow, man, I've got to use Solid State. I feel like my notes often after a session, I'll look at my game notes and it's like, the drunk man owes me 5 gold? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Wait, 21 pounds of iron?
Have you guys been recording your sessions? It's just good for like looking back, like, oh, why did I name this guy? Like,
oh my gosh, that is not a bad idea. I actually did that in the past. I did do that in the past. I would record our entire sessions, and sometimes I would listen to them before a game just to
It's great because Solid State takes directly from your memories, so it also depicts what you were thinking and imagining at the time of the event.
Wait, can you stream through Solid State? Like
That's
is Solid State streaming?
So they're still working on that feature. That's in the working
beta
stages. But yeah, that's in the beta. But it is a planned feature, which is really exciting. I hear it's got a lot to do with they're working around the whole major image complications, but I mean, hey, one day soon you can have that come out live.
Dude, that's epic. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I walk into my tavern and I'm like, wait, is this tavern red or blue? And then it changes depending on what I remember.
Right.
Yeah. Thank gosh, I remember the tip that I want. Thanks for jogging my memory with Solid State.
You got it.
Spotlight is something. So Spotlight was this idea that Ben and I came up with after dealing with a rowdy player. But just something that I was like, man, why didn't we come up with this sooner? I feel like there's so many moments where it would have been good to call Spotlight. Like that time that our tricky roguelike player snuck up and kind of spoiled our moment. It was all within the bounds of roleplay, and ultimately, I would say it was a kosher experience. However, had we called Spotlight, it wouldn't have happened. So what Spotlight is you say the player or the dungeon master who wants to draw everyone's attention says Spotlight, everyone stops what they're doing and stays absolutely quiet and pays attention to the player or dungeon master that called Spotlight. And that Spotlight will usually be between two people. So one player and another player, one player and the dungeon master and one player, or possibly, rarely, a dungeon master and himself, like an NPC or something. And the point is just that often in D&D, the mood is, at least at my tables, is usually semi-serious, right? There's lots of joking happening typically, right? So the king will say like, winter is coming, and then everyone says some Game of Thrones joke or something like that. Or I don't know, the orc is like, that's what she said, because it's contextually what he would say, and everyone's like, ha ha ha, ha, that's what she said, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
And it really pulls you out of the moment. Or a player is saying is holding their dying sibling or parent in their arms and trying to have like a good goodbye or something like that, and then the rogue player is like, while they're talking, I start taking his boots or something like that. And it's like, well, that could be funny and all. It definitely ruins the pacing for that player.
Yeah.
And so Spotlight is a great opportunity. Also, it makes people pay attention beyond just don't interrupt. It's also pay attention. Often when it's not your turn, especially in combat, players will be on their phone or reading the player's handbook or reading through their notes or writing notes or doodling or getting a snack or whatever. And to just call Spotlight and get everyone's attention and just, hey, for the next 5 minutes, maybe less, maybe more, just focus on this moment. We've been building up for this a long time. I really want to highlight this moment and just, I'd love to be seen and I'd love to be heard. And I'd also love to not be interrupted while we do this thing. Mm. And yeah, we used it, and it was super effective.
It really worked.
It really was really great. Ben's character was having this really great heart-to-heart with his father. His father had abandoned him as a child, and he finally found him as an adult. And his father was in the midst of abandoning him again, sneaking away in the night. And Ben caught him and was like, "Where are you going?" And we started this conversation, and then someone asked, "Am I near where they are?" And then Ben was like, "Spotlight."
I was not gonna have that interrupted. I'm so glad that we mentioned it beforehand, because it was just that, every character has certain moments within a campaign where it's just like, this is what my backstory was set up for. I'm finally having a moment with my character. Like, I'm gonna be selfish. This is about me right now. And if someone is just like, hey, remember that animal fact that I was talking about like 4 minutes ago? Like, I found it on my phone. And then while I'm literally crying to my father, or at least my character is crying to their father, to have that interruption, it's such a buzzkill.
Yeah. Have you ever had that happen here?
Yes. D&D is a game for chicanery. It's not a game for tragedy sometimes.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'll try that system out in one of my future games.
Yeah, Spotlight is something that was just a great little thing that just came to us. We were recording an episode of Nosy Drag Inn, and it was just like, I have an idea. And we just we mentioned it in the episode, and we used it in the forthcoming sessions, and it was like, this is a great tool, man. Like, so then we had just come up with the idea. So if you're familiar with it because we talked about it, and you're thinking like, oh, you already talked about it. Like, well, now we've tested it and it does work and it is fantastic.
Yes.
It's a great tool.
Can be confirmed, because there's nothing wrong with D&D being light and fun and full of debauchery.
Absolutely.
Joking around is part of the fun. You're with your
There's
group of friends.
totally a time where someone, like an NPC, is dying and the rogue goes, I steal his boots, and everyone laughs. That is sometimes awesome, but not always.
Yeah.
Very, very group dependent.
Yeah. Depends on the style of play at the table. It depends on the goals and objectives of the party, and it depends on the characters, literally the characters you've created, the PCs that you've created for that campaign, and their style, their roleplay style, and their backgrounds and all that. Yeah. If you had a group of my insane rogues, I don't know if there would ever be a spotlight moment. But if you had a group of my paladins, it was just everything is monologues and epic moments and tearful, thoughtful. Yeah. Oh man. So speaking of that, also safe words. So we were starting a new campaign, and we were having a session -1. It's just like before we even had a session 0, we were just talking about like scheduling. We were talking about, time management. We were talking about what day of the it's all scheduling, basically everything I'm saying. But we were just talking schedules, and we were trying to figure out what day of the week to play, and blah blah blah. And we were thinking to make shorter sessions or something like that. And I was like, guys, we can't do shorter sessions because we spend so much time just on tangents and on little divergent conversations and stuff. Like, we sit down for a 4-hour session, we probably get an hour and a half of actual play done. And everyone laughed. And I was like, we have to have some sort of system where we just stay on task. And everyone agreed, but then everyone was also like, that's not going to happen. So I was like, okay, if tangents happen, what if we had a safe word that meant like, shut up, let's get back to task?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what if we like named it something after like one of the most like, the things that D&D players argue about or talk about extensively forever. And I was like, what if we said like tieflings can't be purple as our safe word, or dragonborns don't have tails? And then Josh, who's normally on the podcast, Josh was like, what if it's animal facts? Because our table so consistently gets distracted with some bizarre animal fact.
Wait, is he the guy that pulls up the animal facts on his phone?
Yes, that's him. He's the guy. He was the one who brought it up too. It was so perfect.
Yeah. And animal facts has become a staple at our D&D table. And it's sometimes we're having so much fun and we all want to keep talking about it, but we know that we'll never play D&D if we don't stop. And so like someone will be like almost crying, laughing, and be like, okay, animal facts. Like, we've got to get back on task.
Mm-hmm.
Or we'll never finish. Like, we will never leave this room that we're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's worked so consistently because even before, when we were going on tangents, someone would be like, all right, guys, let's finish the tangents and get back on the game. And then we'd
like,
start,
wait.
and someone would go on another tangent.
Oh my God. I was just, wait, hold on. I just scrolled down. Apparently.
Yeah, the reason that alligators and crocodiles are different is like, but since we've implemented animal facts, like everyone understands. Like, it's like, okay. No,
nobody gets offended. It's just you drop the word and everyone just wraps it up real tight, real quick, and we continue. Do you
I
have
love
anything
animal
like that,
facts.
Hero?
No, but I do love animal facts.
Yeah.
Have you had your fair share of players sharing animal facts in your campaign?
Not literally animal facts, but all. I don't remember what players think about. It's player brain. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
The
No, I
wonders of
definitely
player brain.
I've been a player more recently a lot, and I've definitely had that where serious stuff is happening and my brain is just totally in the weeds. I'm just like thinking about something that's connected to something that's connected to something, and then I'll Google it. I'm like, that's crazy, and then I'll mention it, and it's sort of related to what's going on, but not really.
That's
And
always how it is. It's like it spurs from somewhere. It's not totally random, but it
yeah,
just spirals out of control.
I've even integrated that into a character. The current character I'm playing right now is an artificer with very high intelligence. And so I have him spout off random facts about everything. Just stuff I know.
It's great. It's great. I have to have
Yeah.
my NPCs stop him. like like I have to canon call animal facts like in the context of the game. It's pretty funny.
Okay, so here's a great tip that I want to talk about. So when as a dungeon master, everything you describe draws your player's focus to that thing. So if I say you're in a room, it's 4x4 room, which by 4x4 it doesn't mean 4 feet by 4 feet in D&D. I mean 4 squares by 4 squares, which are 5-foot squares, right? So it's a 4x4 room. There's a desk, there's a red carpet, like one of those oriental style woven carpets. There's 2 windows, but they're shut with shutters. There's a red door at the other side of the room. There's a bookshelf and a few barrels in the corner. The players are going to want to check the barrels. They're going to check the desk. They want to check, so it's really hard to describe something. They're going to look under the carpet.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, my player instincts were like, there's something under that fucking carpet. I know it.
I'm going to open these shutters.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, you brought attention to it. Otherwise, you can just, we would have said, it's just another room in the house. There's stuff in it.
Yep.
Right? So it's like, it's hard to not want to look at everything. So how do you manage describing a room without distracting your players with the details?
I'm curious for Hero's intake on this.
Yeah.
So what I do is I give them a lot of just information. So much of it, like not all of it is applicable in the scenario. Maybe one of my party members is an architect and they know something about how the house is constructed, but maybe that has absolutely nothing to do with solving a murder mystery right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you just kind of have to condition them that like not everything is going to be used against you or used as a plot twist. This also goes with NPCs that are just kind to the players. I have very veteran party members, and they're just so conditioned. Like, this guy's gonna backstab me in my sleep. No, they're just offering you a place to stay during the night. Like, they're just being nice to you.
Oh, finally, someone gets it. I feel like I make I have a tendency to make my NPCs kinder than like in other senses. Like very often, like I'll have a player like offer a warm meal to them like out in the rain and automatically exactly. And like not everything is a plot. It's like I can't tell you how many insight checks I've gotten to like I want to see if he's lying.
Oh my god, insight checks and the lie detector on every like random dude. Like
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if he's taking tickets for like you entering the city like on your wagon in front of a line of everyone else. It's always like, is he cheaping me out of my money?
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's tough. As a DM, I've traumatized players by lulling them into a sense of security and then betraying them later with an NPC, and that's good storytelling. But it's also rough when you're like, guys, there is no deeper secret. It's just a room. It's just a chicken. It's just a sausage, guys. Like there's nothing more to it. That's all it is. Yeah, I've definitely learned as a player not to touch everything with a 10-foot pole. I've often been, when so normally when you go through a door in D&D, just go through the door. The DM goes, okay, you want to check out the next room? Okay, you're in the next room. But when the dungeon master goes, how do you open the door? You're like, because you're worried. Like, is this a mimic door? Is it a trap door? Is someone watching? Like, is there a spell? Is there a scry spell? Is there a curse? Like, I try to do my best as a player to just open the door. I touch it with I grab the doorknob heartily with my hand, like I always do, and swing it open. Because I've been that as a dungeon master. I go, how do you open the door? I've also done that as a dungeon master to freak players out, just because I thought it'd be funny. Describe how your fingers touch the doorknob, and they're like,
they're dying over there.
Oh, you a-hole.
And it's like there's nothing, and then they spend the next 20 minutes being like, why did he ask me that?
Yeah,
no reason.
Oh, it's so true.
Yeah, so I would say if you want to describe a room but you don't want them to waste a lot of time in it, say that there's stuff that should be in a room like blank. So you go, it's your typical kind of office stuff strewn around, desks and stuff, and so on. Right, which sucks because sometimes you really want to give those vivid descriptions to really lay in what the building is like. So you can break character sometimes and go, guys, I'm going to describe the room really vividly, but I don't want to waste a lot of time here. I just want to give you guys a sense of what this area is like. I think that's an easy way to do it, is to just break it and go, hey, I'm not trying to draw attention to anything. I'm just telling you what it's like. Or you can, describe the first few rooms really well and then kind of yada yada. Not so that because they aren't important, but just because you don't want to get stuck in the details and have players using their video game RPG sense of checking every urn and every barrel and every box and flipping every basket and cutting all the weeds and no hidden rupees, guys. It's just, let's move on. So on the inverse of that, when I want to pull attention away from something, but I want them to see it, but hide it in the detail, what I do, and this is what I did, and I was pretty proud of this idea. It came up all by myself. I had an NPC that I wanted to be in the background a lot. That was a little weird and a little, should draw attention. And I was like, how do I bring in this NPC to be in the background so that when they finally formally meet him, they're like, oh, wait, we've met this guy before, right? Wait, we've seen this guy before, right? But it's really hard. Every time you describe an NPC, it's like the players often, not always, it depends on your group again, but most players will go, oh, he described this NPC, he must be important, let's go talk to him. I've even had that happen where it's like, it's really nothing moment. Nothing is happening. And I'm like, oh yeah, that guy from earlier, he's in the street walking his dogs. And they're like, I go talk to him. And it's like, oh. So what I decided to do is like, all right, I'm going to describe the tavern. I'm going to fill the tavern with people, and I'm going to describe every single person in the tavern. But I'm going to give extra attention and extra detail to the jester, the bard, right? The name of the tavern was the Black Jester. And there's this jester in solid black, like everything. And I went through all this detail describing how the jester's clothing is black, his guitar is black, his strings are black, the frets on his lute are black, his hair is black, it's all black. And he's
just
playing
a shadow on the wall.
Yeah. Your hand seemingly comes up against him. He feels flat up against the wall.
And I spent a lot of time describing him. Then I described the barmaiden. Then I described the legendary NPC who's going to be a part of the main storyline for the next 35 sessions. Then I described another NPC, and then went back to the jester again to describe what he's doing as an update. And my players talk to him, and they ask him to play a song, and he seemingly is a nobody, no one interesting, random bard. And I play him as the most generic, cookie cutter, no character depth, nothing. flat two-dimensional character like, "Hi, I'm a bard. Sure, I'll play a song for you. What song would you like to hear? I know it." Ding, 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 ding. And they're like, "Weird." And I successfully hit a character in plain sight that they never talked to.
It's true.
It's about managing associations that like players have. It's kind of hard to explain within a short amount of time, but
Will take a long time. Give it to us.
like you have to subliminally plant things in players' minds, like the amount of depth you give to a description of an NPC. That's something you're playing with, and you're associating things like depth means importance, or maybe this color means like, okay, red means healing, right? And that's some, like, if it's in a vial, obviously that means healing potion.
Yeah.
And but then if you give like a red potion that like hurts them or is like poisonous, right? Like you're not thinking about the associations players might have with common things. And that's where like a lot of DM player miscommunications can happen when you're describing things, because things can get convoluted from what they commonly expect to see and what it actually is from your perspective.
Very true. Very true. I mean, you don't have to be a psychology major in order to play D&D, but it helps.
No, I think that's really true. I also thought when you said that, like, yeah, a player will, if you say there's a red potion, they're going to assume it's a healing potion. I was like, that's brilliant. I'm going to use that to portray my player.
Oh, God.
What that was the opposite of my point. You want to use it like.
Yeah, I know. I know it's definitely a good idea. Yeah, because if you say like, oh, there's this black potion with some sort of viscous fluid in it, and when you uncork it, it's got this kind of noxious, toxic smell that of like rotting whatever. They're like, well, this is poison.
Yeah.
I think that's better. That's definitely better D&D than that being the healing potion.
Oh my God.
And then you complain, you're like, why are you guys, I don't know, you shouldn't have TPK. They gave you 10 healing potions. I was like, what? It's like, yeah, the black potions with the rotting, viscous, lumpy fluid.
If you were in some sort of grimdark world, that'd be funny, but
yeah, like if you teleport your players to this world where everything is backwards and it's like the Riddler's lair or something, then that's okay to do because the subversion of expectation is already expected. Like they're expecting the opposite. But if you just throw that in as like you're regular, you're normal, you're gonna have some pissed off players.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can hide something in plain sight, and also be careful to not over describe a scene in trying to describe it, as to draw too much attention to something that's mundane and unimportant. Rather than naming every single house in the village, you can just say there are some houses about, and in general they look this way, rather than saying like this house has this kind of construction, it's this many square feet, and going through all of them, and it can be really cool. Like it's mossy on one side, and all that. Go into the real depth of what the room smells like and what it sounds like and what it looks like and what it feels like and the humidity. And
I will say though, if in the context of like, let's say you're already far gone, you've already described the room in full detail and you mentioned the barrels in the corner, and the players, that's the first thing that they want to go to, even if you haven't had anything planned for it, even if like the barrels are just plain description, if your players find it interesting and engaging and something that they can have fun with, put something there. Like, make it the focus, because that is how you're going to be moving the story forward. That's how you're going to have something engaging. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you go up to the barrels and they do an investigation check, and all of a sudden you tell your rogue who's fiddling through them to make a dexterity saving throw or be bit by the poisonous coiled viper that's been sleeping there the entire time. And attached to the viper's tail is a map depicting the current location. And then you add another layer of mystery. You make what they found interesting, and you can still use it as a tool to redirect your players to what you want them to find, instead of just having it be like, you search the barrels, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Thoughts, Hero?
I'd say the ratio for what you find in just random things. I read this in like an Angry GM article. Was like 40% nothing. No, it was like 50% nothing, 25% bad things, 25% good things. that mainly applied to like room design, like in a dungeon. Like half the rooms like have nothing, and then the rest have some interesting content. But
Huh.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good thing to put in mind. It's sometimes it's good to not reward your players. I definitely agree that shifting focus to something. So let's say the players spend a lot of time talking to a particular NPC who was a no one NPC who had no name, no job, just commoner number 15. But they spend so much time talking to him, and I had to come up with so much information about him to satisfy their questions that now he is an interesting character that they care about. Then it's okay to tie some meaning and some value so they didn't waste time playing D&D at the table, accomplishing nothing that night. However, I think sometimes it is good to go, great, you spent all this time unlocking the closet, the door, and you open it. Oh, and it's a broom closet. So are they magic brooms? Give me an investigation check. They're regular brooms.
Yeah.
And that also is a way of teaching your players. If you have more time on your hands, sometimes if you're kind of feel like you've got a 1 hour session, ain't got time for that. So you can just be like, yeah, no,
1 hour session. How?
I've done it. I DM'd a game twice a week, 1 hour each time that we did it.
Oh,
You're a superhuman.
He's insane.
I did the recap really
He's a
quickly,
masochist.
and I kept people on task, and I kept descriptions to non-important things exceedingly simple and vague. But yeah, so I just feel like sometimes when you don't have time, you just rush right through it. But when you've got a nice 4 hour session, it's okay, to have there be nothing in the barrels, or something in the barrels, but nothing of value to the players. Like there's a bunch of candlesticks, or like the barrel is full of some sort of oily substance, and they're like, "Ooh, is it flammable?" And it's like, you give it a smell, it smells fishy. Salmon oil. Like, what do I do with this barrel of salmon oil? It's like nothing. It's 120 pounds.
You can try to make a pill, get your own.
Oh no, player brain goes, oh, we gotta liquidate it.
This is an asset. We can sell this.
You get to the merchant. He's like, oh, that salmon oil's well spoilt. Smells right off. Sorry, not interested.
In fact, you can pay me and I'll get rid of it for you.
Yeah. I wouldn't even buy the barrel. It's got that fish smell now. It's awful. It's garbage, really.
Ugh, heartbreak.
I'm thinking about charging you for wasting my time.
That's a quick way to get that NPC charged in a different manner.
Yeah, but I think there's also a bit of like magician's choice in this as a dungeon master, where you kind of, it's like the cups and balls, right? If I say, I put the cup under one of the balls and I spin the cups around and I go pick a cup. As a magician, I can make you right or wrong if I want to, right? Because the truth is the ball isn't in any of the cups. It's in my hand. And when I lift the cup in such a way, I place the ball under the cup I want. So it's a 100% I guarantee always win, right? So you can do that in D&D, right? So you can give your players a choice, like you want to go to the right town that's like got sunshine and rainbows and is on the coast and it's beautiful and the shipping yards and whatever in the trade district, or do you want to go to the town on the right, which is in the mountains, stormy, and there's volcanoes and wolves and tigers and bears, and I want them to go to town on the left. And they're like, oh man, we're going to that mountain town. So they go to the mountain town. And as you're walking, it's really bizarre. But you feel like as you're getting closer, like the clouds are dissipating. You realize that the mountain stops smoking, and like you just keep describing it nicer and nicer and nicer, and then they get to this mountain town that looks super intimidating from a distance. And now it turns out to be like, yeah, everyone's super friendly and it's really nice. There's a bustling trade district. Like there's like a rainbow appears above the town. And it's kind of like you just move the two towns. And they've got a trade district in the port. And it's like, they have a port in the middle of the mountain. It's like, oh, it's a sky port. There's like griffins and stuff taking trade in and out. And then they eventually go to the other town, and you make that one now the brooding, awful town where everyone's backstabbers and killers and fools.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, they don't know what's behind door number 1 or door number 2. And when they make, quote unquote, the wrong choice, or the choice you weren't prepared for that night, or that day, whatever, you can just switch what's behind the door, and they'll never know.
Quantum works, baby.
Quantum works.
Yeah. We've got to avoid the raiding orcs. Like, oh, let's go into the forest, and it's like, oh, the orcs are in the forest chopping down trees, and you encounter them. No. And it's like, all right, we go to the castle. The castle's being stormed by orcs. No.
Quickly go underground. You find an orc mine.
Yeah, they're digging tunnels. No.
Yeah. Wait, that'd be such a deranged concept for a campaign. Just orcs who have mastered quantum technology.
Oh my god.
They
already have their Albert Orkstein, who's, developed the theory of relativity.
Speaking
It's
of
over.
It's done.
Speaking of Albert Orkstein, if you need to name your NPCs on the fly, a really awesome technique to do that is having a name list. So a name list is, you get like 100 names written down before the campaign or whenever, just when at your leisure, you get a bunch of names written down. You can either use like fantasynamegenerator.com, generate a bunch of names. You can do like 50 elf names and 50 dwarf names or whatever. You can just do just generic names. There's also name lists online. There's also D&D name lists online for this exact purpose.
Yeah.
You download them. You can either have them on a D100 system, so you roll a D100 to see what the name for the NPC will be when they ask you that you didn't know the name of, because most of the time I don't know the name of NPCs because I didn't mean for them to be interacted with, right? So you can roll on the D100, and then once you use that name, you just cross it out. And then you can write it down in your journal. Oh, they met Tyler Hendrick at such and such place, and they did such and such, and whatever. And then now you've got an NPC ready to go, fresh out of the oven, real quick, real fast. And your players will feel like, oh, maybe this character is important because you knew the name right away. Behind the screen tip there.
I'm so bad at names.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I mean,
sometimes
you throw something out and you don't remember it. Like, that's happened to me plenty of times where my players have kept track of names, but more than I have. And then I'll have to like refer to my one trusty player who records all the information to be like, hey, sorry, what was the guy that I introduced to you last week? Because they're gone.
Yeah, I've definitely done that.
Note taker player is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Oh?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
Describe.
Sometimes I keep track of a calendar, and sometimes they correct me, and I'm like, I'm a bit pressed, right?
Yeah. I mean, because the note taker is great because you're like, what's that NPC's name? And they'll tell you. But on the same note, you need to know that NPC's name because he wrote it down.
Yeah, exactly. You can't lose all your credibility as the DM.
Yeah.
They're gonna find out that I've just got like 3 words and a paper clip and a piece of paper as my setup for this session. I'm screwed.
So we have a couple more things to do on our list of things we want to talk about today, but I think that maybe we're gonna have to save them for another episode. Unfortunately, it just would take too much time. I think there's just so much depth, so many tips. We might have to do this again sometime.
Got some great minds here.
So many tricks.
Oh, dude.
So many tips and tricks. Oh man, well, it's been great having you on the podcast, Hero.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
This is a blast.
Mm.
Nice. Well, that's closing time, guys. No more drinks for you. Sorry. Also, I'm out of drinks, so don't come look behind the bar. There's nothing there to see. I am genuinely out of drinks. This is a breaking character moment. There's no more drinks.
Oh my god. The one
Aren't
day.
Aren't you a gold dragon? What happened to your hoard?
Well, I hoard memories and experiences.
Which you can save
And I'll
solid
hoard
state.
this conversation in my heart forever.
This tavern's going under.
Yep. Sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna have to find a new place
I have
of
like
business.
2 patrons, mostly just Ben once a week. So it's really, I'm not in it for the money, okay?
Yeah, the one night that you have a new patron, you run out of drinks. Great. All right.
All right, get out of my tavern.
Good night.
All right, yeah. Have a good one, guys.